Hi, everyone. I want to talk a little bit today about life's cycles. And it's actually funny because I was just shooting this video and I had to do like 5 takes because it's garbage day. And outside, there are all sorts of garbage trucks driving around, loud noises, backing up with the blaring horn, the reverse horn, you know. And what's interesting about that is it fits really perfectly into this topic, the cycles of life. Sometimes there are things that just obstruct us, but like everything, they eventually pass. And so, in this little video here, I want to talk about some of those cycles and then how being aware of those cycles can be really positive when we're maybe at the part of the cycle that we don't necessarily prefer. So there was a study, I want to say a few years ago. I can't really remember the specifics of it too much, but the core conclusion of it was that rather than people plotting their lives on an upward trend, a progressive trend as things went on, they actually described their lives as more of a spiral where there was many recurrences of the same sorts of things over and over again. And they had done this study with elderly folks that were able to look at their entire lives and give a perspective on how they really viewed that. Especially in the Western world, we think a lot about upward trends. We are always hoping for more money. If the market's doing good, people around us that have money in stocks are happier. If the economy is going up, we feel like we're maybe becoming more affluent. And so we have this perspective that if we maybe go through these stages of life, we get educated at the beginning of our life, and then we find a romantic partner, and then we settle down into a community that we really like, and then eventually we hit our career, and we just love our career, or we don't love our career, but we get through our career, and then we retire. There's this progressive state, and then retirement is sort of the almost like the nirvana of life in the Western world. I finally get to relax. I finally get to do whatever I want to do, and then we don't really talk about this, hush hush, but then we pass away. And it was interesting because these elderly folks didn't describe things that way at all. They described it as a spiral or a circle, oftentimes. That things repeated in their lives. There were times of plenty, and there were times of nothing really there. There were times of lots and lots of friends and a great community, and there was times of loneliness and sorrow. And so these types of understandings about cycles are actually also very prevalent in our natural world. And we can really see those and we feel them. We're in tune with them. The cycle of the seasons, for example, every year, there's seasonal shifts that we mark with different holidays and traditions, oftentimes, even if we're not really people that celebrate any holidays or traditions for different seasons. We know about them. We're aware. Even if we're not running out to get the pumpkin spice latte during fall time, we are inundated with all of that kind of stuff. And we recognize, it's a little cooler right now and things like that. So these types of yearly shifts happen, and then there's shifts also on longer cycles, and there have been through time, since time began for us humans, we try to describe what all of these cycles mean, and there's the movements of the planets and movements of the stars, and there's a whole industry of astrology out there, as well as also some folks that are really effortful towards doing astrology in a way that they're attempting to be helpful to others too. but there's all of this cyclic element of existence. And also in our lives, we find that there are a tremendous amount of cycles. So, for example, you get a new job and there's that honeymoon period, as people describe. And then you get through the job. You've been doing it now for however long, maybe a year, maybe two, maybe, many months. And you feel really confident. Now, all of a sudden, your job is easier for you. It wasn't that kind of that panic, that fear, that getting to know everything at the beginning. Also, people maybe were easier on you at the beginning, and now it's kind of like the daily grind. And then eventually, you move on and you find somewhere new. I read somewhere that people only spend like 3 years in their jobs max, generally speaking, nowadays, which is much less than the past, and that actually creates this feeling of cycle. So then you just get into this new job, and there's that same honeymoon period, getting into the nitty gritty, and then kind of the burnout or the it's time for something new feeling. So the reason that I'm talking about these cycles is because there are parts of these cycles that cause us stress and that we prefer. Some of us actually prefer different parts of these cycles. For me, the first part of the cycle is the very, very stressful time. Even though people say there's a honeymoon period to new jobs, it's always very anxiety creating for me personally. Other people have more of the enjoyment actually of that beginning period, and then later, when they start to feel very well adjusted in their job, what ends up happening is they feel bored or they feel frustrated that things aren't getting done, or that they're not as valuable as they thought they would be, or things like that. So there's some people that fit into that second category. And again, I'm kind of talking about jobs here, but this can apply to all sorts of other types of events too. There's always a beginning, a middle, and an end. You go to a party, for example. There's the beginning part where you're meeting everybody, you're saying hello, and then there's the middle part where you found some folks that you really engage with and you're talking to them, and then there's the end part, and that's the goodbye. We at various times in various circumstances become stressed with some of this, especially in the entire cycle of life. The goodbye can be really hard. As I've mentioned in some other videos, my dad passed away last year, and so the goodbye is hard. And for those that have lost loved ones, we all know how hard the goodbye can be. But it's part of life, and it's also something that we experience all the time in very kind of micro levels. Even goodbye, honey, off the way to work, or goodbye, my friend that I only see every now and again. So all of these types of things have cycles, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then there's new beginnings and new middles and new ends. And they repeat over and over and over and over in different circumstances. But oftentimes, when we're in the midst of the delightful parts, the parts that we might like more. So for me, it's the middle. I like the middle. The beginnings and the ends causes some stress. The middle, I don't really get bored very easily, mostly. So I like just kind of settling in to my lazy life, in the middle. In the middle. Beginnings cause me stress, make me nervous, and endings cause me grief and cause me sorrow. But again, you might be you might be totally different. You might find that the blend of what causes you sorrow or sadness or boredom or frustration is different. So use this little opportunity to look into your mind, kind of think about what for you, where for you do you generally feel joyful, and where do you generally find maybe some sadness. And again, we're changing people. So this is just, it's fluid too. So it's not really an exercise to try to pin you down. It's really just being aware of tendencies maybe, or of habits, or of feelings that kind of come up again and again. So why this is somewhat of an important topic for anxiety, stress, again, like these afflictive emotions that are just, I don't like this part of my life. And the goal is let's pacify those. The benefit of talking about this is that if we know that this is a cycle, if we know that we're in the midst of many cycles, it's sort of like little circles and big circles that are all kind of moving at various speeds. If we recognize that we're in cycles, then we can have patience when we reach a point of the cycle that we really don't like. And the benefit of that is that we don't forget that this is not permanent, this point in time that we're in, that we're not really enjoying. Like the getting to know you phase at work, for example, for me, or the goodbye period, the grieving process when you lose somebody, or you have to say goodbye to your house. For example, if you're doing a move, your home, you're moving your home, and you have that moment of sadness, excitement, but sadness. So in those moments, we oftentimes kind of just bury it. Let's just bury that, is what we think to ourselves. We're not going to really look at that. But then oftentimes it comes out in weird ways. It can, come out when we least expect it. Especially grief is like that. And that can cause a lot of extra anxiety. Additionally, anxiety that's not grief related, just fear, social anxiety or things like that, can really become worse if we aren't aware of it. And part of the reason is because a lot of therapies are like this, phobia therapies, and otherwise, and for anxiety too. Part of that is that what we do naturally is that we avoid the things that we don't like. We avoid the parts of the cycles that we don't like. And if we don't like it a lot, what we end up doing is steering clear of it altogether. So, for example, I really don't like new beginnings in some ways. I like the middle part. So that might mean that I'll stay in a problematic relationship, or stay in a problematic job, or stay at a problematic party, or whatever it is, for a little too long, that I should have left and gone to a new beginning. That I shouldn't have been afraid of the new beginning, but I stayed for too long. Similarly, when things come to a conclusion, I might have a hard time starting. And this might feel like you too. It might be hard for you to start. But again, it's based on whichever tendencies we have. Whatever we like the most is where our comfort zone is. Where the things that we like less, we might avoid in a very subtle way, just by burying those feelings and then saying, I don't like that. But the thing is, that can create habits that aren't really helping us reach our full potential, and also keep us in a situation that actually makes us feel more and more and more alone, tight, anxious, fearful, sad, depressed. On the other hand, if we're aware of these cycles and we're aware of our own preferences in which part of the cycle we're in for these various parts of our lives, then we can say, oh, well, that discomfort will naturally pass. If I just go through this thing, I'll get to the part I like, which for me is the middle part. And then I can relax. But I might have to go through a little bit of this discomfort. And even if I don't choose to go through this discomfort, life sometimes brings that discomfort to us. And then we have to remind ourselves that it's just this part of a cycle. And eventually, if we're patient, if we recognize that this is just cyclical, then we will move forward a bit more gracefully and with a little less problematic emotions that are pulling us into thought patterns that don't make us happy. So again, I guess the practice for this, if you want to test it out, is just try out looking at where you are in your life. You can even plot it on career, romantic. We could categorize it, I guess. Life, age. You look at all of these things and you ask, where am I at right now? Am I in the beginning, the middle, or the end? Which do I prefer? Which do I prefer? Which of these do I need to have patience? Which of these have I been not having patience? And also, which of these have I gotten too complacent? And if we notice that, we can then open our minds and hearts to the potential of just the natural flowing cycle, rather than gripping on to the shore as the stream is pulling us. I hope this works for you. And if it doesn't, try something else. Thanks so much.